What's up everyone, and welcome to another Wayfarer's East Heroclix tutorial, and today we're going to be talking about making a 300 point team with a support base. In our last couple of videos we've been talking about, making teams that have incredibly heavy hitters, making teams that can do a lot of damage and then fly back out without having to worry about taking any in return. This team, on the other hand, is made of a lot of lower point characters that are able to complement and help each other. So first off, you'll notice that we have 5 characters on the team. Now, there is a drawback to that. Because it's a 300 point game, you're only allowed to give your characters 3 actions per turn. And so because we have 5 characters, 2 people will not be getting actions that turn, no matter what turn you're on, until, they start dying off or whatever. But without further ado, let's get started and look into what we've got here. So first off, we've got Grifter. And now if you look at Grifter's dial, you'll notice that he has an 8 movement with running shot, 10 attack with penetrating psychic blast, and then he's also a sharpshooter, as you can see there. And then he has an 18 defense, which is pretty high for I believe he's 88 points. Yeah, 88 point character. And then he's also got willpower, meaning that he can ignore pushing damage for a turn. That's a pretty solid first click. I know he only's got 2 damage, but I mean he's using penetrating, so he will be dealing those 2 damage direct no matter who he's fighting, unless he's attacking somebody with invincible. And then if you also notice, he's got 2 lightning bolts there, meaning he can double target. Now that's a pretty solid first click for a character who's only 88 points. Let's take a look at what he has later. He eventually develops super senses. He gets a special attack, which I don't know what it is on the top of my head. I apologize for that. But he also gets +1 to his attack. It becomes an 11 now with penetrating, and he gains perplex, which allows him to, add a bonus to your friendlies or subtract a bonus from your enemies. And then it basically turns into that. And then he gets, let's see, that's telekinesis. And he gets willpower back again later, and then his last couple of clicks. He's also got regeneration on his last click, which is really helpful because you can bump about 4 clicks again and, get back into the fire and work. So that's Grifter. He's a pretty solid attack piece used for flying around and dealing some quick damage with that penetrating. Next we have our support pieces. Now if you look, you'll notice that we have Alfred, Jinx, and Lucius Fox. Now, there's something important about all of these guys. Each one of them has a different support ability. Alfred has the ability to use Perplex, Jinx has the ability to use Prob, and Lucius has the ability to use Outwit. Now, those 3 things are very important on your team because you can use Alfred to perplex up your opponent's, say your friendly's attack when you're making an attack, or say it's a turn where you have to rest, you can perplex up somebody's defense so they're not getting hit near as hard. And then later in his dial, he also develops an ability, his white attack ability there allows him to use Shape Change and Support with a range value of 4, which normally support has to be when you're adjacent to a friendly character. And then they also get healed +1 for every action token that's on them, so they are going to be healing at least 1 or 2 depending on the character. If you also notice, Alfred is indomitable, so he is, pretty nice for a 42 point character. He can do 2 actions consecutively. Next we have Jinx. She's pretty straightforward. She's got Prob and then a special defense, which allows her to use Super Senses and Barrier. So it's pretty straightforward. That Barrier comes in handy when it's a resting turn and she's the only one who can use an action. You just lay down that barrier in front of your team, and then you can defend yourself a little bit from the enemy. Next is Lucius Fox. He has Outwit, which is really handy when fighting somebody with like hypersonic speed, or somebody who can use super strength and deal super damage with a heavy object, or maybe you want to outwit an opposing person's defense, or they're impervious or something, so that you can deal damage straight through. That's really nice with Lucius here. And then he also has the special attack ability, which says he cannot be the target of the first non-free action of your opposing character's turn. So I mean, if they're going to be using just a basic attack, so say Grifter's on the enemy's team, he's going to attack Lucius. He can't if it's the first action of the turn. Basically, Lucius can't be hurt. And so sometimes he's fun to just throw into the middle of the enemy and kind of let him sit there because they can't do anything until the turn kind of progresses a little bit. And then last we have Black Lightning. Black Lightning is one of my most favorite characters that I have for a few reasons. First off, you'll notice that he has the Outsiders team ability, which allows him to negate effects against the characters. For example, if he's carrying somebody or not if he's carrying somebody. Let's say we don't have anybody with flying, but let's say we had somebody with flying on our team. We could, if they were carrying somebody, normally they would have to -2 to their movement when they're carrying. If you outsiders you're friendly, then they don't have to subtract that too, which is really handy because you could use that with like carry, you can use that with move and attack, which would normally minus your attack by 2. And so it's just a bunch of really nice. It's a really nice team ability. Also, you can also outsiders an enemy. So let's say they've got +3 to their attack and +3 to their damage because they have like 6 perplexes on their team. Well, you could outsiders that person and all those perplexes go away for the turn. And it's really cool. Also, another thing I like about Black Lightning, as you can see, he's got running shot with a range of 8. So he can only run 4 squares when he's shooting, but he can shoot 8 squares away, which is a pretty radical range. Also, he's got that special attack ability, which allows him to use penetrating psychic blast, I believe energy explosion, and then also he can use incapacitate as if he had 3 lightning bolts. This is really cool because he can incapacitate 3 enemies at one time. Basically, your character just rested their people, they're going to get ready to attack you next turn. Sorry, no. You incapacitate those 3 people again, and then all of a sudden they have to wait another turn to rest, or they can take pushing damage depending on what kind of character they are. Then he also has got a 17 defense with willpower, so he can ignore pushing damages if he chooses to, and then a 3 damage, which is okay. You know, I usually don't use him for attacking anyways. I usually use him for incapacitating only. And then, as you can see, he kind of does the same thing on the next dial, and then the next one. And then he gets Pulse Wave with Energy Shield Deflection, which is really cool because you can run him into the middle of people and then Pulse Wave there and just deal damage to, like, everybody. And then Energy Shield Deflection gives him +2 against range. And then he also gets support with Exploit, which is pretty neat too. So he can run 3 squares, hit somebody for 2 damage. So his dial goes all over the place, and he has that, and he's got 6 clicks. So I mean, he's pretty solid for an 87-point character. But that's basically all there is to this type of team build here. Just remember that when you're making a support-based team, you want to have enough people that can actually support your team. So people that can perplex up, people that can outwit, people that can prob. You don't have to always have one of each. You could have 3 perplexers. Or if you really want to annoy the hell out of your opponent, you can have 3 probbers, because probbers annoy the hell out of everybody. Because it's like, oh, you just rolled a double 6s and are going to deal 7 damage to me. How about I make you re-roll that, and all of a sudden you roll a critical miss and deal 1 damage to yourself. Yeah, that's what prob does, and it's really annoying. And so make sure you have, maybe, you don't necessarily have to have 2 people for your attack base either. I have Black Lightning and Grifter. You could just have 1 person who's like 170 points or something like that. Or you can have, you know, whatever. It's just make sure that when you're building a support team, you have the people to support the person who's going to be dealing the most damage. And that's basically all there is to it. I hope you liked this video. Make sure you subscribe to Wayfarers East. Check me out on Facebook and Twitter and wayfarerseast.com. And without further ado, have yourself a great day.